Welcome to the Hustle or Bust podcast powered by Paverart. Our mission is simple: to dive deep into the world of entrepreneurship, small business, and all the success, struggle, and challenges that need to be confronted in the pursuit of growth. We celebrate the entrepreneurial spirit, but perhaps most important, we want you to learn at least one idea that you can put into action immediately to make your investment in time worthwhile. For all you good folks that are listening to our podcast today, it's a very momentous and special occasion in the history of Paverart. Now, I know typically we don't talk about the business per se, but today I felt it was important that we do that because today, August the 1st, 2023, is the anniversary, the 5th anniversary of Mark and Kim Oliveto purchasing Paverart. And I wanted to take some time and speak with Mark specifically about all those different aspects of buying this business, what prompted him to do that, what motivated him to do that before he actually even did buy the business, how things have evolved since that first year of learning the business and the next 4 and growing the business. Really wanted to delve into that and pull some of that out of him if we could. But that's what this one's all about today, and we hope you enjoy it, and thank you very much for tuning in. This is going to be a very momentous podcast as far as I'm concerned, because today, August the 1st, we celebrate the 5th anniversary of you and Kim basically taking over the ownership of this business from Jeff Seeley and myself. August the 1st of 2018, as I recall. Am I not correct?
You're right on the money.
Okay, good. I wanted to pull this off today because we are a much different company today than we were 5 years ago. Significantly different, and that can only be chalked up to, the purchase of the business by you and Kim, and the infusion of all sorts of interesting things and really great things that have occurred since then. Now, I'm going to start this off with probably the most basic question I could come up with. Give us a little background, but at the same time, what was it that compelled you to buy this business? What motivated you to do that? What did you see? What did you feel? Give us a little background on that. But really, what was the reason you bought this business? What made you buy this business?
Well, nothing made me buy the business. It was all desire to try and, I guess, make a difference. Let me think. And by the way, we didn't plan this, so
no. This is all. this is all very but this is the way I wanted it. Very extemporaneous.
So I pulled up this morning with Dom. By the way, Dom's on his, what are you on, your second week of your learner's permit? We pull in, you said, all right, impromptu podcast. And I'm like, all right, cool. Don't know what it's about. So, but let me try and answer your question.
The man's driving a car 3 hours a day, 4 days a week for the last 2 weeks. So,
so he's
pretty good, Dom.
He's down to 1 infraction per trip. He started out at 20 infractions. So he's got the hang of it by now.
Unbelievable.
He's getting more comfortable. But all right, so what prompted me to buy Paverart?
What compelled you to buy Paverart?
Well, in August of 2017, so almost a year, I sold my previous business. So I had time, I had some capital, but I wasn't going to buy any business. I was doing a consultant gig, which I had no ownership of. It was a challenging consultant assignment. It was a turnaround. It was a business that needed help and needed help quick. They were kind of on the brink of bankruptcy. I think I stabilized that business, but there was no ownership involved. So I could have done a fantastic job or a terrible job. When you're not an owner, there's only so much skin in the game that you have in terms of upside and or downside. Mm-hmm. So I make a terrible employee. I think once you own a business and you have control and operating control of a business, you've almost become unemployable in the world of business. So I could have gotten a job as a hired gun CEO. I had a couple of offers, but working for people, even if you're a CEO, you're reporting to people, you don't own it. In the world of private equity, it's the most glorified employee job you can have is being a CEO when you don't have operating literal voting control of a company. So that didn't appeal to me.
Okay.
Having a set of bosses. So that was one. I want to control a business outright and not answer to anybody except for clients and employees, the other stakeholders of the business. Now, the particulars of Paverart, I thought it was I tell the story a lot. We did a hardscaping project in our backyard, 2014. I give full creative control to Kim. She picked out the type of paver, the fire pit, the retaining wall. We did it fairly elaborate for a small little property. We did a retaining wall, a sidewalk, a patio, a seating wall, and a fire pit. And I didn't know the first thing about pavers. Kim did 100% of it. I wasn't even brought in for an opinion. So she picked the pavers. She picked all of it. Did a nice job. This was 2014. So I stumbled across the Paverart listing. It was up on the market. And the first thing I thought of is, all right, hardscaping design, turn in pavers into art. Why didn't we? The first thing I said is, Kim, why didn't we do any of this? She looked at it and she's like, oh my God. Well, number one, I didn't know about it. And our guy didn't tell us, our guy being our contractor. So I thought that was an interesting insight that we didn't even know about this. And this was a New Jersey-based company.
Nor did your contractor.
No, nor did our contractor. So I thought that smelled of opportunity, because if we saw this and we knew about it while we were doing that project, we would have done something. We would have put a compass in or something. So right away, I found a disconnect there. Being a consumer, what is that? That's 4 years in the rearview mirror. We would have bought something like this, but we didn't know it was available. So there was a slight marketing opportunity. When I walked through the business, I noticed the dirt, the grime, really hard business, really dirty business. That appealed to me. So most people get turned off by that. I didn't. I thought it was interesting, gritty. I'm like there's a person for the anti-pedigree, the anti-polish, that's me. I don't believe any of that matters, but it's overvalued in society. If you've got an Ivy League degree and you look sharp, you got a great looking suit or whatever the right attire is, the Dockers with the blazer, you're going to be looked at as successful. It just turns my stomach. That's just who I am. So I see the dirt and the grime, and that's kind of the anti-pedigree. That appealed to me. The intellectual property, having a patent on the business, that appealed to me. You and Brian were highly attractive from all right, you guys are dedicated. You have 20 years, or at the time, what was it, 15 years you had in the business. You've been here from day one. Brian, at the time, was here for 8-9 years or something like that. He kind of saved the business from an operation standpoint when Mick passed away, our founder. I thought that was compelling. But beyond that, this is a business that should be a heck of a lot bigger, stronger, more stable, and it needed a lot of work. It needed an infusion of capital. It needed some talent. I saw that I could make a difference. Now, how much of a difference is impossible to know, but I thought I can come in, and if I put not just my money at work, the place needed some money, but money wasn't the solve. It was energy, a look. I thought there was a great product, really cool product. But the team, which was you and Brian and one other person at the time, was kind of a problem child. They didn't fall in love with their product. Or they might have fallen in love with their product on day one. That passion for it, because you guys were worried about survival mode and keeping the lights on, I thought that was off to the wayside a little bit. So I thought we can re-engage the enthusiasm of our product. So those are, I'm trying to think if there's anything else. I saw a lot of upside, and I also saw that it was hard work, tedious work, painstaking work, and none of it would be easy. So I saw it as a challenge. So I saw a big hill that was conquerable if the right amount of time and energy and talent was brought in to try and help it.
We're not getting there. All these are great reasons, but we're still not getting there. You basically, for that year after you sold your previous business, you were comfortable financially. You felt good about that. That was a huge win for you and Kim. And what you always told me was, yes, you've always looked for other opportunities to buy a business, which means, and I know you're obsessing with that. You're doing that, if not every day. A big chunk of your week is spent checking out
what's on the market,
what's available. Look, we're Paverart, okay? I know who we are. You can't get more opposite from L&M Foods than Paverart. I mean, what you turn that into.
And not really. Very, very similar.
Okay, well, we'll riff on that for a bit.
A food business. Let's talk about the world of food manufacturing. Forget about L&M Foods.
Sure.
Any food, let's just say protein, whether that's meat, seafood. A food manufacturing business is dirty. It's you go through a seafood plant in America, you go through a meat plant in America. It's going to be cold, it's going to be wet, and it's going to be kind of unappetizing, which is kind of hard to think about in the world of food because you eat it, right?
Sure.
But you walk through a meat plant, you are not going to be hungry and going out to get a meal. You're going to be kind of turned off by that, right? It's the equivalent of a dirty environment, and you got to have a stomach for it, right? Literally. It's a harsh environment. You're not sitting behind, you're not in an ivory tower in a food plant. You're in a tough environment. And are you strong enough for that, mentally and physically? So in a lot of ways, there was a lot of parallel there. There's a lot of specialized knowledge in a food manufacturing business, especially in the world of proteins, when you got to kind of know food science. You got to know how these things interact with different ingredients. In our world, it's the same thing. We're dealing with high-powered, highly technical equipment with computer designs driving machine that drives the human element. So there's a lot of parallels there, a lot of specialized knowledge. If Brian or whoever's working that specialized knowledge doesn't embrace ownership or management, then that thing ain't going to work, right? If the plant manager of a food business wants to hoard all the secrets and hold the place hostage, he's going to hold the place hostage if he chooses to, or she. So there's a lot of special, now, different size business, that's where the differences come in. You're dealing with 65 employees versus 3. That's a major difference. But food manufacturing, anything that's got a degree of grit, grime, kind of a blue-collar tinge to it, whether it's food or semiconductors, whatever it is, that's the first thing that people got to screen for. There's so many MBAs out there trying to buy businesses, and they're trying to buy them from the Ivy League. They've never worked in a blue-collar type environment. Good luck.
Okay.
Good luck.
We're getting closer. We're getting closer. There are, at any one time, there's thousands of businesses for sale in the United States. There's hundreds of businesses for sale within a 100-mile radius of where you live. You're screening these. You're looking at them. You're looking for the ones that just pop out. How did Paverart pop out? What was the, look, I'm sure there were other possibly more attractive opportunities with, more of a management team in place. Something that maybe required. Maybe you thought there was a challenge that would require your background and expertise to get that business to the next level. But you saw Paverart.
Yeah, look, Paverart would not make any screen for any private equity buyer. It wouldn't make any.
Of course not.
The world of private equity buying businesses, I want to buy a business that's at least $5 million of revenue, making $700,000 a year, but somewhere between $700 and $1.5 million, and I don't want to pay more than 3 times or 4 times the cash flow. That's my criteria.
Right.
So that whittles out 95% of the world, right? Paverart's not going to make any screen because it was doing less than $1 million, wasn't making anywhere near enough profit to support me and my living expenses. So it doesn't make any screen, right?
Right.
But now, let's say I've got this classical criteria. It's got to have at least $5 million of revenue and making $800,000 a year in profit, and then I'll go pay $2.4 million or less for it. That's my screen. That's going to take up to 2 years to buy that, right? So the calculus in my mind is, look, I can be dicking around for 2 years trying to find something. And then, so I'm knocking on the doors of investment bankers and brokers, people that are listing these, and I've got a very specific criteria, and I'll be able to find one. There's a lot of businesses that change hands. But it might take me 2 years. That's the truth. So is my time and my energy, what if I just jump into a business that is below that criteria and start making a difference? Right?
Gotcha.
Own the whole damn thing outright and start using my talent to impact a team and a business versus looking for that perfect business to buy. Now, will that perfect business or something close to that criteria come along? Yeah, it will. But I spent a year and a half or whatever it is and all the capital to go search and find that business. Now, that could be the right thing to do. A lot of people would argue with it. That's the classical thinking. I want to use my time impacting something quick. So time is a currency for me. If I can wake up in the morning and come to a place and help a team, help a business, help customers, that to me is more useful for the world than saying no to 10 deals that are below a criteria. So I think, I think I'm in a minority in the world of buying businesses. Most people are going to be very disciplined to that criteria.
I would say you're definitely in the minority.
Yeah, they're going to be very disciplined. And by the way, there's a business case mathematically. That's the better approach. Let it be. So I thought my human capital and my energy would be better spent coming and making a difference and breaking balls out of place with people is better used than trying to say no to 5 deals because they're below my criteria or try and get deals done and all the process that takes. I've done them both, but I thought my time's better spent and I have more fun getting into something. And, all right,
Sure.
let's get in with the clay, start molding the clay, and let's get to work and see if we can build it.
What's the payoff for you personally? I mean, look, it's anybody looks at the layout here. Anybody looks at the personality of this business, what made it up, what it came from. What is it about this and getting involved with this day to day that makes you, what does it do to you personally, for you personally? I mean, what's the, there has to be a motivating factor. And by the way, you're 5 years neck deep into this. Okay, this isn't something that you started you hung in there for 2 years, and then I'm out. I'm going to try something else. No, you're in it for the long haul. What is it what's it doing for you psychologically? What's it doing for you personally? What's it doing for you, inside?
Well, there's a couple things, and it gets more to your question of, what motivated me. Well, a couple things. I believe the world of private equity is like, if there was a group of people that you can generalize and they have adult attention deficit disorder, it's a private equity world, right? If you're going to go, here's the name of the game. I'm going to go find a business for $10 million.
Right.
I want to put $8 million of debt on it and go raise $2 million of investor equity, buy that thing. And over 5 years or less, and if it's 3 years, even better, I'm going to knock the debt down a little bit and sell it for $20 million and return a lot of capital, right? That's the world of private equity. The quicker you can sell that damn thing, the better. That's the adult deficit disorder. They think in terms of, are we going to get out of this thing in 3 to 4 years or 5 years? They all say they're long-term horizons. It's bullshit. They're all fucking lying. The world of private equity, I'm buying small businesses or any business, is historically short. That's why Buffett is such a magician. He buys something and he never wants to sell it. So part of the thing, I bought a business in 2014 and we held it for 3.5 years. We did great things to it, but we sold the damn thing in 3.5 years. Now the question, and we did great with it, right? Did great for investors, did great for employees. There's a whole host of things. And I don't cry about the outcome, but the truth is, what I think, when you've got a business that you can build and you can grow it year after year, again, if you're not growing, you're dying. And if you can do well over 3.5 years, my mind goes to, what can you do if you had that thing for 20 years? How will that thing compound? The name of the game in the world of investing is compound interest. The snowball effect. 10% growth. Now you get growth on a 10% bigger pie and it starts to snowball. It takes off. But you've got to have a long-term vision. You can't have someone saying you got to sell this thing to get me my money back. So if I can control it and I make that decision, but not a group of 25 some odd investors or a private equity group because they've got the attention deficit because they're getting measured by things like, here's a fancy term, IRR, internal rate of return, which is the investment return measured by a time factor. So the quicker they can sell something with a good return, their IRR gets better. In the world that I look at compounding in total dollars. And if it takes me 10 years to get there, so be it. Not in a rush. No one's got a gun to my head. Kim might want to take an extra vacation, so we got to deal with that, right? But that's my other interests I got to satisfy, as well as the employees and the customers. But there's no one telling me I've got to sell this thing. In the world of private equity, someone's going to put a gun to your head. And if you don't give them a return on that, they'll find a way to remove you out and get someone else in that will. So that was a attractive aspect, to control the entire thing. And if I want to run this thing for 20 years, no one's going to tell me to sell this thing. We might not be successful. The market might say you're shit. And all these changes you made aren't worth a thing, so you can't cash flow. And the market rejects me. That's part of it. But that was an aspect of it. The other aspect is, I've always said from day one, the combination of Mike Bull, Ken Bull, and Mick, great, experienced founding team. And Ken Bowles, when you think about CFOs, and you're not going to brag on your brother, but I will. One of our founders, Ken, you make a list of the top 100 CFOs/COOs, senior level executives for publicly traded companies. By golly, he's on that list. He is clearly on that list. Just look at Five Below and their success. Well, he was a founder of Paverart. Now, the competitive, I got a competitive streak, right?
Sure.
He was with Paverart for 5 years or 4 years.
He was an active partner for about 4 years.
Okay.
Active meaning day to day.
Look, so that's my opinion of Ken. One of the top 100 in the entire freaking country at what he does. Very specialized. The captain of industry. Well, he exited Paverart because it wasn't financially successful enough, so he had to go feed his family, right? So I totally respect that. So there is a competitive streak that, with that level of founding team, and it never broke through a certain threshold, they were surviving. They made it 15 years. Can I do something different? That doesn't mean I'm better, but that was a challenge. So I'm looking at the deck is stacked against this thing. So not only did I buy well below a classical criteria from a size of business standpoint, there was 15 years of evidence that says this thing ain't going anywhere. You got 15 years, a great founding team, a technology, a product that was patented, and who are you, Olivia, to think you can make something of this? Well, I found that as a challenge. So the deck was stacked against us, and I like that. So that doesn't mean that was but there was a chip on my shoulder that says, all right. And by the way, I've been in big companies.
That's the answer I was looking for.
There's a chip on my shoulder.
Yep. That's what I was looking for.
So that might be it takes me a while to get there. So thank you for pushing me. But there's a chip on my shoulder to see, can we do it?
I see that, but see, I see that in you every day. Okay? I've learned that. It took me a year, maybe a year and a half to learn that about you.
Maybe that's anti-establishment. If the private equity world says you're going to sell this thing in 3 to 5 years, I kind of think, oh, fuck you, I'm going to do it my own way. Right? And I'll have a better outcome for everybody involved. So if I needed to buy a business where I controlled 100% of it so I could do it my way, because I think my way might be better. Might not be better, by the way, as measured by IRR or classical measures.
There's history here.
But
I know the history. We don't have to go into it on the podcast, but I know the history and I know the chip on your shoulder. Okay? I'm very familiar with that. And as a driving influence behind, damn it, this can work, and I'm going to make it work. If that's the overarching theory, that drives you every day, all I can say is thank goodness for that, because it's made a difference. It's made a difference in this business in a massive way, in a massive, massive way. And again, this podcast is not about me; it's about you. But there are parallels that I see here. From day one, I knew we had a business. From day one, I knew we had a product. And it's just, a cacophony of things make you go as far as you go, okay? This did not change. This business did not change until you came into the business. With all due respect, to me, Mick, and Ken, I agree with you. We did a great job. We laid the groundwork. But to catapult to that next level, I didn't know what it was going to. I just, you're looking for ways to do that, and it's hard to do that when you're by yourself. And but you came in, shook things up in a major way. You took a year to learn the business. Who the hell does that? I can see 2 months, 3 months, but you took a year. You were very, very patient, and most importantly, you were patient with me, because I know I can be a pain in the ass. And oh no, Mark, this is the way we do things at Paverart. Yeah, no shit, Mike. That's it. That's why I'm here, and we're going to change all that. But you took a year. That's not
a customer.
Not only is it not customary, but that's another thing that makes you different than the whole private equity deal. I mean, they come in, slice and dice. We're going to do this immediately. We're going to turn this thing around. We're going to do this. We're going to do that. And damn it, you got 6 months to get this thing in place and ready to go. But you took a year. And learning this business, it's not like you had a template from which to work from. You basically had to get in and get dirty. And that, speak to that for a bit. I mean, was there ever a point during that first year where you felt, oh boy, what did I do? Did I, did you ever have any doubts? Did you have any, questions, issues, things that made you sit back on that hour and a half ride home every day and go, holy shit, what the hell did I get into here? Did you ever have one of those moments during that first year? Because if it was going to happen, it was going to happen during that first year.
Not in terms of regret. When I bought the business, the private equity playbook is, like I said, it's lever the thing up. If you got $100,000 of cash or about $1 million of cash flow, go put $4 million, put as much debt on the thing as you can, $4 million, and put $500,000 of equity in. And, well, guess what? You got to pay that monthly bill. $4 million of debt in today's interest rate environment might be $800,000 of payments going out the door. So if I bought a business that's making $1 million, $800,000 of that is going towards servicing the debt.
Sure.
I'm oversimplifying here, but roughly that's the deal. So I bought a business, and I wasn't going to put debt on it. I wanted to have that long term. If my thesis was, fancy word, right? If my thesis was, if I'm a decent operator and I can do something good over 3.5 years or 3 years, what can I do over 20, right? How can I build a team over 20 years if I did okay over 3 years, or let's say my previous role, 8 years as a CMO? What can I do with an unlimited time frame, right? And what can I do if I didn't have the gun to my head called debt and 80% of the cash flow going out the door to service the debt because I didn't want to put my own skin in the game in a big way? So one of the strategies was don't have a gun to my head for debt. And then number two, capitalize the thing well. Have at least 3 months worth of expenses in the bank so we don't got to sweat a bad month of sales. Now, to your question about, what was it, going home at night on the 82-mile trip home on the Turnpike, there wasn't regret, but there was the mental freight train of, this thing's hard. How are we going to do it? What do we got to work on? Is that the right thing to work on? Is it Brian? Is it Mike? What do I got to get a better relationship with person A versus person B? How do I do that? How do I do it in a way that's, real and not like political gamesmanship? Because I am in this for the long haul. So there was all of this, not regret, but how do we make it work? And I had plenty. This is the first time in my life I've had a long commute. I've always been a believer of, here's your job or your place of employment. Try and locate yourself within a radius that gets you there within 15 minutes.
Sure.
And then that way you can spend the time either working longer or with the family, whatever you choose to do. Now I've got an hour and a half trip down, or an hour and 20-minute trip down at 4:30 a.m. or whenever I'm coming, and an hour and 45 home with the traffic. So that's unusual. First time in my career of 25 some odd years working, but it gives you time to reprocess. So in a lot of ways, my car is a sanctuary of stress, the mental freight train, and trying to figure it out. And you and I get on the phone maybe once a week on a trip, and we kind of kick that around because you've got a long commute too. You've been doing that for a long time. So there wasn't doubt, but there was a ton. This thing doesn't shut off. It's a processing of what's working, what's not working. Are we making progress? And that's what we did. We just did a summer episode. How are we doing this year versus the same time a year ago? Are we making progress? So one of the things that's got to keep you moving, you got to know some definition of progress. Is it sales? Is it people? Is it morale? So you got to have some way to say you're making progress. If you're not making progress, the flames are going to die out slowly. So you got to keep the flames moving. So doubt, no. Regret, no. What do you do about it? Times 1,000. It really was. The commute really does force you to do that. You can turn on the radio and get sucked into politics or music or whatever it is, but I use it as, what do we got to do? And I try and use that for action.
Some of the best business discussions that we've had have been in the car on the way home, and occasionally on the ride in. Some of my favorite conversations we've ever had were when you were looking at other businesses, and you were always kind enough to involve me in those, that decision-making process, just asking me for my input. And it's fascinating because look, when you're tied up here I've been here since we came up with the idea, or since Mick came up with the idea, this has been a 22-year experience for me. So there's not much else that you can be thinking about. You're here. This is what you're doing every day, all day. And but when you started looking at also, this is a constant thing with you. You're always looking.
It's a sport.
What's that exactly?
It's playtime. It's enjoyable.
My hobbies, music and working out. Okay, and yours is never stop looking for other opportunities, which I think is fantastic. But some of the best discussions were in the car on the way home when it comes to that.
I'm fascinated by the whole commute thing because this is new to me. Over the past 5 years, first time I've had a long journey down, and I typically do it 3 to 4 days a week, depending on the week. So there's plenty of hours. I mean, when you're driving 30,000 miles a year, there's a fair amount of time to kind of think through. But quiet time, I think, in life when you're busy, I think. Do people really? That's a luxury in a lot of ways to have 3 hours a day to kind of decompress, to get your thoughts together, to try and put it in reasonable buckets, to try and understand it, and then try and deal with it. With Dom driving now that he's got his permit, I got a little bit more time because now I got a kid that's smart. We listen. Here's an example. We're listening to this podcast, Acquired Minds, and these guys. Shout out to the folks at the Acquired podcast. These guys, too smart, kind of like venture capitalists. Great podcast, but these guys are geeks times 1,000. They go in and they'll do a deep dive on Nike, and their podcast is literally 3.5 hours long. They'll talk about the history of Nike and what made them Nike. Mm-hmm. And they'll find, they do, I don't know how, I think it takes each of them 100 hours of research. So they say, all right, Bull, go away, you research Nike on these 5 areas for 100 hours. I go do the same on these 5 areas. They come back together, and then they do a 3.5 hour podcast on giving you the story of Nike and what made them successful. So him and I, he's into video games. We did the history of the game console wars and the history of the video game business. And we're 3.5 hours. Yesterday, we knocked that out. Then we did another episode. We knocked that out. And we're kind of comparing notes, right? So now all of a sudden, you got, let's call it 6 hours a week, 8 hours a week in the car. That thing's becoming a learning lab. Compound 6 hours a week times 50 weeks a year. You've all of a sudden got 300 hours of getting better and trying to sort out your world a little bit. That's a nice little advantage.
Exactly.
Now, would I rather be 10 minutes away from my house? You bet your ass I would. But the question is, how do you make the best of what you got and use it to your advantage?
It's never, driving has never been an issue for me. I mean, when you're on the road, mm-hmm. When I was growing up, that, hour and 25-minute drive down to Baltimore on Route 40 or Route 1 before I-95 was built, I know that dates me. Mm-hmm. Everybody's going, what do you mean? I-95 has always been here, right? And when we signed the Declaration of Independence, I-95, wasn't there an I-95 car? No, there was not. But the
you've dealt with
that seemed like a long. But that seemed like an hour and 25 minutes seemed like a long time until I went on the road. And then once you get on the road, it's that disappears. But anyway, that's
give me your perspective. So you hit me with the podcast, and I should probably 5 years. All right. So, but give me your perspective. 5 years. We went through a lot of changes. Give me your perspective, because you've got the unique advantage of seeing before day one, working with Mick and your brother, trying to launch Paverart, and then going through the startup,
sure,
going through the grind in the middle, and now. Give me your perspective on.
I'll sum it up very easily. It's very easy for me, and it boils down to the same freaking question I get from everybody that I know. Why are you still working? Why I don't understand. The business has been sold. Why are you still working? Why aren't you retired? Why aren't you enjoying your time? Your wife is retired, and why aren't you? Well, the answer I give, and it's pretty simple, and it sums up hopefully, and the response to your question. But it basically I can sum it up by saying, when you're here for the tough times. I mean, when it was. You're going home, and by the way, that commute can be a real pain in the ass when you've had
uncertainty,
a bad day,
mm-hmm.
or a string of bad days, or you're wondering, can we make payroll in 10 days? Okay, what are we going to do if we can't? You get enough of those days, and it grates on you. Okay, but what solves that problem? Sales.
Success.
Sales solves that problem.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, success solves that problem, but success can be interpreted in many different ways. Sales takes a lot of
pressure off. You're right.
Sales
right.
is the interpretation of success
right.
for a business like this when you're, and I was there on more than one occasion when something happened. A massive order would come in, and we're good for 6 months. Or a string of occurrences would take place in regards to an employee or two, and the ability to get stuff out the door quickly. Circumstances prevailed, and that's what basically kept us alive during the tough times in 08 and 09.
Sales wins.
And 10 and 11 and 12 and 13. I don't want to hear anybody say, the recession only lasted, the 08 and 09 recession only lasted about 12 months. Mm-hmm. Bullshit. Mm-hmm. Bullshit. That's another story for another day. But when you're here for all of that, then all of a sudden, things change in a very, very, very positive way. And all of a sudden, the things that you wanted to do, that you felt were needed to make this business more successful, now they're happening all the time, okay? And that's what's happened over the last 5 years. Why wouldn't you want to be here to enjoy that? And that's what I tell everybody. I want to be here to enjoy that. Hopefully that answers your question.
So let me poke on it a little bit.
Go ahead.
The people that are asking that question, whether it's family or friends, whatever it is it fair to say they didn't have appreciation of what your life was in 2009, 10,
No,
11,
I
12?
never talk about that stuff.
So the answer is they didn't have an appreciation.
There's basically...
They had no empathy for it.
There's two people that I would talk to that about, okay, who shall remain nameless, but they're very close friends of mine. They know who they are. One of them's, in fact, they're both related to me. But they know something about what was going on, and I don't have to explain to them why I wanted to stay,
right?
Why I wanted to be here. Plus, there's the pull that
it's expected at a certain age.
You want
societal norms, I think.
You want to be part of
right.
the success of the business, okay? It's one thing to get it off the ground, get started, the weeks on the road, the shitty hotels, if I tell you what, if I ever eat at a Bob Evans or a Cracker Barrel
or Red Roof Inn,
stay at another Red Roof Inn for $49.99 HBO free.
Yep,
by the way, there's 9 HBO channels. They had one. Forget that bullshit about HBO, okay? If I never stay in another one of those or eat in another one of those restaurants, and again, Cracker Barrel, great. Bob Evans, great.
I love the fact that you've got a strong opinion on it. You could talk about this.
This is where I live.
Right.
This is where I lived
right.
for a lot of years, and you know what? That's okay. I actually, it felt like home when I saw those places. But I got to tell you, it reminds me now of what it was like, 10, 15, 16, 17 years ago, 20 years ago, when every day was a struggle, but it was exciting, okay? Today, it's not a struggle, but it's exciting. Every day seems to be exciting. There's something new going on virtually every day. There's a reason, my reason for getting up and coming here has completely and totally changed. And that's why I want to keep coming here.
Let me poke on it more because number one, it gets the pressure off me.
We're not done with you yet.
So there's two things in what you said. I think which I think are broader, I don't want to say societal problems, but everyone deals with it. There's a lack of empathy generally, and do people really know what you're going through in those dark times when you're worried about shit? Just made payroll, but I don't know if I can make the next one 10 days from now. They don't understand what you're going through,
right?
Broadly. Maybe the couple close friends do.
And my wife.
There's a lack of empathy for really understanding. Unless they've done it, they don't really get it.
You understand it.
Right, I get it. I've been there. I lived through it. And the second thing is, isn't there a healthy dose of the fact that you're getting that question? Bull, you're 70 years old and you're still freaking working? What are you doing that for?
Right.
There's a societal pressure in everything related to careers, isn't there?
100%.
You don't think there's societal pressure on a 16-year-old to go to fucking college when 99% of your town's going to college?
Oh, yeah.
Right? You get the same thing with 7 years old and you're still working. Why are you doing it?
Yeah.
I mean, exactly. So there's got to be a degree of, you got to have an independence to be a business owner, a leader, or anything in that matter for business. You're going to have society telling you should be doing a certain thing. You don't think I've gotten you can go be a CEO and make big money. Why don't you do that? You've got that track record. Because I don't fucking want to.
Well, damn it. That's question number 3. You're all right. Go ahead.
Because if I wanted to have that world, I would do it. If I'm, I get the fact that so people have to be able to deal with. Number one, people are generally they care about you. Asking me that question, they're interested in why you're doing it, so they want to know.
I'd like to think so.
But there is a degree of societal pressure that we all face in different ways of why aren't you doing this? This is the classic way of, at your stage in life, this is typically what people are doing. We see you doing something different. Why is that? And they're generally curious. They want to know. But there's a degree of pressure in those questions.
I look at it sometimes a different way. Is there an intimidation? Is there an insecurity there? Look, I've never given anything more than a positive response to that question, I love doing what I'm doing.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah, you don't have to explain
My
it.
wife gets it. My wife, when they ask her the same question, because he loves doing what he's doing, she knows she gets the answer. Okay. And she's also,
It's simple.
It's the roaming around the second floor at 2:00 in the morning because you can't sleep, and you're on you go to the computer, and then you finally say, "Fuck this! I'm up. I might as well go to work." And instead of working a 12-hour day, it turns into a 14 or 15-hour day. But there's a certain comfort in that. Okay. Plus, I've always been of the opinion that I may not be the smartest bulb in the bunch, but nobody's ever going to outwork me.
There's comfort in that.
Nobody's ever going to outwork me.
Right.
And
There's a lot of comfort in that.
if you look at the guys who I'm really close friends with, you, my cousin Greg, my brother, Pat Nylon, Paul Casula, all these good buddies of mine, they all work their asses off, okay? An 8-hour day to them is a foreign concept, okay? They don't get it. It's the same with me. These are the people that I choose to. I love hanging around these guys because they get it. Now at the same time, and you're the same way. You spend time with your family and all that, but you got to be of that mindset to do this every day. And when you pay your dues, even when times were bad, when times are good, you're paying your dues too, but they're good dues. Okay, I want to be there for the good dues.
Let me go back to your original question, which is why Paverart at that time, 5 years ago to the day. Because you and I are of like mind. The word hustle or bust, we value work ethic is who we are, all right? So people can judge that all they want. Why Paverart as opposed to a countless number of other opportunities? The opportunity cost of, let's say, an additional year of searching for the perfect business that fits a nice, clean criteria is, well, then I couldn't work for 60, 70 hours a week. And if you compound that for a year, what is that, 3,500 hours?
Yeah, close to it.
So my talent's not going to be used for 3,500 hours building something when I can go in and build it. Now, and again, the geeks are going to say, yeah, but if you bought something at $1 million, you'd still be farther ahead. I get that. If work ethic is who you are and going in and grinding and going in and trying to impact people, and you can't do that for a year, that's like fucking hell.
It's inside
and I'm going to sit in my
you.
attic at home, annoying Kim as she's doing whatever she's doing, managing real estate and all this other stuff. And I'm going out of my fucking mind, and I can't work, and I can't put my talents to work for 60 hours, and I'm looking at biz, buy, sell, talking to brokers, versus going in and freaking getting my hands dirty and working. That is so much opportunity cost. If your work ethic is kind of who you are, and you can't go work, that's freaking tough. And I'm unemployable, right? So I'm gonna go get a job. I'm gonna go work. Now, will I consult? Yeah, maybe I'll entertain it, but
it's a personal. It's inside of
the
you.
combination
It's
of
what
work ethic
drives
and the
you.
need to be in control. It's not congruous with search and trying to find that perfect thing. I mean, it is to a degree, but really to a degree.
At the end of the day, if you want to tie this into why we even wanted to start this podcast, the whole, discussing entrepreneurial spirit and all that comes about as a result of that, it comes from inside. It is who you are. Whatever the motivations are, it's there. Okay.
There's going to be a generation of people that have gotten sucked into the world of entrepreneurship. These MBAs going to start a search fund. They've got no fucking experience in whatever it is that they're looking for. And they raised a $600,000 search fund to pay themselves $120,000 a year while they go out and search in a world that they've never managed. And they are gonna get a world of hurt on them, right? If they don't have small business management experience and they actually like taking a paycheck to go search for a perfect spreadsheet model of $2 million of cash flow and $6 million of revenue and whatever fancy criteria is in their spreadsheet, they're in a world of hurt when they go into a business they know nothing about, and all their entire hypothesis is, I'm smart, I've got an MBA, and I'll figure it out. God bless you if you could.
Are they going to take a year to learn the business?
No. They've got to move at light speed.
No, they're not going to take a year to learn the business. That's not the model that they're looking for. You took the time to do that, okay? It's when you look at the list of characteristics that were required to make this business go to the next one, two, or three levels that it's gone to, I'd say 99% of the population is going to say, the hell with that, okay? But you didn't, okay? And that's what we're trying to get to today. And you've answered a lot of that already. So, I won't keep beating it to death.
Yeah, well, look, thank you for the kind words. But it's Paverart had an unfair advantage on day one with you, Mick, and Ken. The talent, you did it with relatively limited capital.
Right.
But the unfair advantage was the three founders of the company. I like to think that let's just say you're right, 99% of the people would not do what I did year one, trying to learn the business, being patient, trying to understand what's special, what needed work.
We've interviewed them, Mark.
Yeah,
we know who they are.
Let's just say that I don't know if I would
talked to them.
I don't know if I would call that an unfair advantage, but was it a difference maker? Probably. Yeah, and again, it's 5 years. The question is, what can this business be 15 years from now? 20 years from now, if we do the right things and we continue on a path. Hopefully, that's a test of are we doing the right thing, is when you ask that question, what can Paverart be 10 years from now, and they've lived through the last 5, and maybe they've got experience on a previous before that.
Right.
If they say, geez, I can't imagine it, but it's going to be a hell of a lot better, then you're going down the right road from a long-term planning point of view.
Well,
we got our third team meeting next Friday, actually.
Yeah.
And we're going to build on the last 2. We're going to review results. So we're going to kind of go through it. And so year 20, we're on as Paverart.
Right.
And we've just and think about it. Our third official team meeting on year 20.
Yeah, exactly.
Think about how much more we got to go in terms of these are processes that most companies have ironed out. And we're just right there now starting them, a lot of these basic things.
Well, it's
which means if you believe in those processes, the future's a hell of a lot brighter than what it is right now.
There was a lot that needed to be done first before we could actually afford the luxury
That's right.
of having a team meeting. Now,
That's
some
right.
people would say, well, no, you should be having team meetings from. Well, I got to be honest with
No,
you.
you got to keep the bills house running.
I play cards a little differently than that.
Right.
Okay, I
got to answer the phone.
Yeah, I got to answer the phone. I want to, and same with you. Let's get the hard stuff out of the way first, and then talk about how we're going to get to the next levels as a result of laying a basis.
Right. Get your foundation.
That it's taken years to rebuild that foundation.
Look, anniversaries are kind of fun because they force you, whether it's your wife anniversary at year 40 or whatever it is, or work anniversaries.
Sure. They
force you to look at in the rearview mirror. Now, I'm not a huge believer in dwelling on the past, but it does to take a walk down memory lane. It is somewhat insightful. The annual planning process, to look back at your year that you just had, what worked, what didn't, as you look at the next year to figure out what you're going to do to grow and get better, that's valuable.
We're not easy to live with, Mark. Okay? I know this for a fact. Okay? I know, my wife and I in August will have been married 42 years. Okay? Actually, in 7 days, we'll have been married 42 years.
We got a fun August, though, both of our families.
It's true. Well, that's true. We're actually August is one, September is the other.
True. Yep.
So
kind of blended them
for
together.
those people who are wondering what's going on, we're going to go see. We're going to see Billy Joel.
And let me give another plug on Billy Joel. Not that he needs a
plug.
Like
he needs one.
He don't need a plug. But if you YouTube Billy Joel Masterclass. And I'm not a huge music aficionado,
right?
But his master classes, he's talking through how he writes the songs and what he was thinking of when he wrote "We Didn't Start the Fire." I mean, it's fascinating stuff to get behind the mind of a creative genius and how they write songs. I mean, really interesting. If you got time to kill and you want to learn about some of this composition stuff, really interesting stuff.
And he's very free with his information. I took your recommendation and I watched that, and you're right.
What did you think?
I was extremely impressed because you don't get a lot of that in the.
You show up at a concert, you're not going to get that.
You're not only you're not going to get it at a concert, but you don't get that inside information. Okay, he's comfortable in his own skin now. When we get down this road, we'll have 5 podcasts we're going to have to chop this into. But and the second one, by the way, is Springsteen, the day before Labor Day,
right,
at MetLife Stadium, which
Labor Day. I've said it. I've written 5 blog posts on Labor Day, my favorite holiday of the year, because it celebrates work. Shocker, right?
Exactly.
And that concert's right before Labor Day. Perfect time of year. The Italian festival in my hometown. I mean, it's just perfect date. And can't have a better date.
Argument could be made that those two guys are two of the hardest working, musical people in the history of the profession. I mean, they just
Billy Joel is, I think, how old is he?
oh,
Late 60s, right?
I would think so. Yeah.
Yeah. There's a guy at the top of it. Could he have retired 15 years ago?
Yeah.
Financially?
He can't retire. Are you kidding me?
I mean, what?
It's
The societal pressure on retirement at a certain age, to me, I think is ridiculous. Billy Joel, he's pushing 70. Got to be. And he's still cranking away. Now, this is the reason why we want to go
Paul McCartney, for God's
Yeah,
sakes.
I mean, these are guys at the top of their craft. Ride that son of a bitch for as long as you can. In my mind,
Yeah.
the poison to me would be someone telling me I got to retire at 62 or whatever the hell it is, just because you can. Well, fuck you. Maybe I like doing what I like doing. Just because you thought work was a four-letter word. Now, isn't this some of it? How many people are miserable going to their job? They can't wait. They live for the weekends.
Right.
They got the Sunday scaries at night getting ready for work. And then those are the people that are like, why wouldn't you retire if you can retire?
That's a
Well,
great.
I happen to love what I do. Just because you hate your fucking job, that's your problem, not mine.
I have said that on so
Not
many
to go,
occasions.
not to pair
Well,
judgment on that group of people that do that, but most
think-
people hate their job.
Well, think about it. You're a very important part of a very big family, the Oliveto family, plus all the other ancillary families that are part of that. You know, the men and women who've married into it. Okay, I'm the same way. Those are people. That's your audience. Okay, that's your audience. You get positive feedback and sometimes negative feedback from them, but it's mostly positive feedback from them. That's your audience. You can't do without that. You can't do without that. You can't do without the the acclaim from your children, them applauding you, okay, in so many other symbolic ways. That's got to be why Joel and Springsteen are still doing what they're doing. I mean, every time you walk out on that stage, and there's 20,000 people who are just going absolutely crazy that you even showed up.
So when the lights go
how
out,
could you not want to have that?
when the lights go out, what is Billy? This is the last year he's going to tour at MSG, right? And when January 1st hits, or whenever his last date is, and he doesn't have that on once a month on a Saturday night, it'd be interesting to see how.
What's he going to do to get that same fix? It's
that's hard.
I think it's a positive thing. At the end of the day, we do it on a much smaller scale. These guys have a gift that they've given to mankind, and mankind has given them, that showered them with riches.
Right.
But even more important, it's another million to Springsteen and Joel.
It doesn't make a
Who
difference.
gives a shit?
Right.
Okay. But the fact that they can stand in front of a group of people and they just go crazy, and you can do that for 150 nights a year, that's just Is it tiring? Does it get tired? Does it get to be tiresome? I don't think so.
Right.
I don't think so. I mean,
Look, I think the hard part,
It's just,
another little tributary, but as you're going through whatever journey it is that you, whether it's you working until maybe a little bit longer than people think you should probably, or a kid not going to college, or whatever the societal pressure is, the challenge as you're going through your journey, whatever that is, if you're a business owner out there, it's how do you recruit other people that are like-minded to go along your side with you, right?
Right.
We're in the world of engraving, and there's engravers that are going out of business left and right. And why are they going out of business? Number one, because it's a challenge in business. They're not making money. People don't go out of business because they're making money hand over fist.
Right.
They go out of business because they're struggling financially and nobody else wants to help them along the way. The challenging part is, whatever journey you're on, is can you find a partner? Can you find someone that will go alongside of you? Call that a general manager, a succession plan, or something. But when businesses go out, usually there's a lack of success and there's a lack of other people willing to assume the succession of that business. So business owners have to start thinking about succession from day one. What does that look like? Who's the talent that they're going to develop? Who can possibly, I look at every day, what's our bench look like? If
we talked about this on Friday at length.
Part of my 82-mile journey is, what does Paverart look like if I got hit by a bus, or if you got hit by a bus, or Brian, God forbid? What does that all look like? And are people growing within their jobs to make more money, to get better at what they do, to assume the next level, to continue to carry on the legacy of the company? Those are things you got to really give hard thought to as an owner. And when you're in the thing so many hours a week, that's hard to do. But you really have to do it. And if you don't, the consequence of not thinking that way, some portion of your week is your business that you're building is really just a paycheck. It ain't going to carry on without you.
Yeah.
And I think it's like 90% of businesses don't get sold a year because they've got no succession plan. They're not investable. They're not a sellable asset. Part of that reason is the people. It's the playbooks. It's all the things that you need to do to sell a business. And most can't be sold because they're not thinking about the people piece. The people thing is hard to think about. The private equity guys, they don't get it.
That's really good insight.
The private equity guys love the spreadsheet. They hate culture.
Yeah.
You start talking to culture, their eyes are going to glaze over. They got the attention span of a fucking gnat. When you start talking culture, they're going, hey, tell me about heart and hustle. What does that mean? And then they're going to glaze over. Right? That was a token question to try and build rapport because they're trying to buy your freaking business. It's a soft way of anyway. Off on a rant. They're trying to build false rapport, but they don't get it. They want to see the numbers. They want so. That's where the divide, the operators, and no two ways.
Culture goes past 5 years.
That's right.
That's culture. Culture is what is ingrained in the business that keeps the business going through very, very difficult times, also good times.
This sounds like, by the way, I'm anti-private equity. I'm not. I've got a healthy respect for them. I wouldn't be where I'm at if it weren't for private equity.
Massive part of the market. Yeah.
However, having said that, there is the operator running a business and investing in businesses are two completely different things. So, but I'd encourage all business owners to think about their team, their people. How are they growing them? So in the world where you choose to retire, you've got some kind of plan. You're working towards a plan that the business can assume without you.
Right.
Assume it's history.
Yeah. Culture, the culture of a business, it goes without saying, assumes that there's relationships involved, okay? And when you're dealing with a group of people who are eons away from you, that have no idea who you are or the people that are working for you are, and what it took to get those people to a point where they're liking coming to work every day, okay? That's what reflects in the bottom line. That's culture. That's a big, big chunk of culture. We have culture here. We had culture before, okay, but it was ensconced in 2 or 3 guys, okay. Now it's in 9, okay, and it's it's guys who have mortgages, car payments, kids on the way, college that they've got to pay for, raising families. That's what culture's wrapped up in, and that's the really cool part of running a business.
And it does show up in the bottom line.
Oh my God, absolutely!
If you're spending 20 hours a week trying to fill a position, and they keep turning over, and the next year, if you figure out how to solve that issue, and you're not spending that amount of time, don't you think sales have a better chance of growing a little bit if you're not spending your time? And don't you think the margins to make a product improve a little bit if you got better retention and people are a year stronger in their job and you get the same people? Of course they do. Why are your margins so much better this year? Well, look at my culture. I don't get it. Now, did you think the price is up? Just look at the culture. And again, some of this is meant to drive the other people nuts when they start evaluating. and I kind of have fun with it. But all of that impacts the bottom line. It's not directly, there's not a clear A to B equals C. But culture is absolutely everything.
Well, and
in
it's
a business.
So we've actually cracked another code in regards to why you wanted to get involved with this business and have the opportunity to get involved day to day.
I wanted to repeat. I want to prove that it wasn't a fluke, my last one.
There you go.
That's part of it. So there's no doubt. I had a great outcome that was built on the heels of 20 years of hard experience in sales
and a lot more people.
General management. Had a great outcome, proved it can work, can get great results. Let me see if I can do it again in a harder environment. So that was, that was part of it.
Okay, and I think that, again, we've cracked the code on another aspect of this as to why you got involved.
I've toyed with writing a book, right, just for fun, right? And Kim's like, get a couple more years of Paverart and prove that this is not a fluke.
Sure.
So, interesting perspective.
Well, you're pretty close. You're pretty close as far as I'm concerned.
And by the way, this doesn't mean I got all the answers. I've got a very clear, defined way that I think is in the minority.
Sure.
And but anyway, it's fun little things. Whatever motivates you.
You took a year to learn the business, and in the meantime, earn the respect of the people that matter here. Okay. The 4 years after that, we've, for all intents and purposes, tripled our sales. That's just astounding. After basically flatlining it for so many years, triple sales in 4 years. There's your 5 years right there. During that 4-year period, would you have done something differently? Can you think of anything that you would have changed now that you look back on it? And I know I'm kind of hitting you with that question. You haven't had a chance to think about it, but maybe you have, and maybe that's made you think about what you want to do during the next 5 years. But would you have changed anything? And if you would have changed something, what would it have been, and what would you have changed it to? What would you have what would you have done differently?
I don't know. I originally bought Paverart with a partner. That relationship did not work out like I thought it would in terms of that partner exited the business within like 4 months. Obviously, if I had the benefit of hindsight, I would have just bought the thing on myself versus try to entertain that. So I originally thought I would buy Paverart and it would become one of many businesses that I create kind of a holding company. And I would do that with a partner, and we can kind of divide and conquer and do the different things.
Sure.
Well, the grime, I think the grit of manufacturing, the partner that I had didn't appreciate that enough. And we've been lifelong friends, and we're still friends, so which is great. I believe that if you're going to go into business with somebody, whether that's working side by side of them or having a financial interest, why not do it with a lifelong relationship intent? So we exited great friends as we were going into that relationship. But obviously, that's something the first 6 months, I was in it with a partner, and we exited as a partner, and I became the sole owner of Paverart. I would have done that. I would have just taken it. I would have gotten that idea off the table and just gone in head first, full-time operator. That's something, but that's, you only learn those things when you have that. But clearly, I would have done that. That probably set me back a year, that one decision. But I don't regret it. I learned a lot about myself. Hopefully, she did as well. But clearly, that's one of those things that, had I known that, I would have done it differently to start. As it relates to operating a business, are there things? Yeah, they're tactical things that clearly you would rewrite a bunch of different things. Would have learned Google marketing quicker. Would have jumped into that. Probably would have tried to get some experts around us to help us a little bit more. So there's tactical things that, of course, I would do differently, but nothing major, revelatory. You're going to make a ton of mistakes. So clearly, if I can go back and do it over again, the mistakes wouldn't have happened. Right. But I don't think you don't get any do-overs in life.
Okay. Now, we've talked about this before. We actually did a podcast on this when we talk about our spouses. You're on the phone every day to Kim. Okay. I'm talking to Kim at least once a day, if not more. And you've told me this story before, but it's a great story. What was her influence in you buying the business? Because you don't do anything. I mean, she's your partner, not just personally, but management-wise, she's your partner too. What was her take on all of this when presented with the possibility that, hey, I'm looking at this Paverart outfit?
No, she was quick. She was like that, real similar. She gravitated towards the product. She'll look at a website real quick. She's got a screen that says product first, kind of, from a consumer standpoint, and she was real quick. Oh, I love this company. It was real positive, real fast. That was her first take. That's usually my first screen. If I get that first screen, and by the way, the opposite. I've thrown her a lot of other opportunities so I can kind of discern her screen. When we get that first quick check, I know this is going to work. So that was the first one from a product standpoint. She was like, oh yeah, let's go look at this thing. So good first, and we got that brand, we got that product, so that helped. And then she's not risk averse. Now one thing about Kim's always worked. She's similar work ethic, similar values. She's always gotten a paycheck. She had struggled with. I never struggled with the fact that at my previous company I owned, I got a paycheck every week. I was on a payroll, right? Not a Paverart. We're not. If we do well, we had the choice to reinvest that money called profit back in or take a distribution. Well, she didn't get that concept. She's gone 30 years with getting a paycheck every week for as far as the eye can see. So we buy Paverart, and what? Where's the direct deposit? Well, there is none. We're going to see what we make at the end of the year. What? What does that mean? She's had a hard time getting her head around that, right? So, and I think a lot of people struggle with the the jump. When you don't get a weekly paycheck, that's something you got to get your head around. You get a distribution if you're profitable. So it's the ultimate result. It's the ultimate wrestling match. Your team ain't going to bail you out on a wrestling floor. It's not a team sport. You're on a wrestling mat. You're on your own. So she struggled with that piece. But in terms of your question, it was initially very positive on the product. So that was an easy thing. Kim's always supported. I've had to give her full reign over the kids and Hope and her education plan, and then she's given me full reign over career. But that doesn't mean we do it in isolation. I want to know what's going on with the kids' education. She wants to know what's going on with work, and we lean on each other. But she's the lead at home, and I'm the lead in our professional.
Gotcha. Well, it's a very special relationship.
And by the way, all the things I'm not good at, which are like, there's more things I'm not good at than I am good at. She gets all of those. And I delegate that to her, and she finds a way to do it great, and then it allows me to focus. So
we're familiar with what those things are, Mark.
Is anything administrative or process-oriented? I'm gonna screw it up, or I'll spend 10 hours the amount of time that a normal person would do. So she gets that, and she does it great, and it'll get done right.
I understand.
And it frees my mental capacity up to do something I can actually make a difference on.
It's amazing when you think about our wives. They're very similar in many ways. Again, work ethic. Women, just they work their asses off. They work their asses off all their lives, and that never seems to change. Great moms, take that job very seriously too. And oh, by the way, I have this job over here too. It's not easy.
Right.
Not easy to do all that. In fact, it's very, very hard. But the one thing that I will say, and I don't know if we covered this on the podcast or not. Bev has always trusted me. Okay, she's trusted my capabilities. She's trusted that the people that I'm friends with, or that I know, or that I'm working with, are also going to do the right thing. There's an implicit trust there, and she's never given me any grief about that. She never has. And I don't get the third degree every night when I get home. And if I care to talk about something that happened at work, she's there to listen. But she doesn't press, and she gets it. And I can't ask for anything more than that.
Yeah, I think it's huge. I forgot what episode it was, but I
it was like 2 or 3.
Yeah, we talked about I drew a pretty, I don't know if it's controversial, but your support system as a business owner is pretty freaking important. Mm-hmm. But just because they're family doesn't mean they qualify as support systems. You need, and I think I drew this, I gave a number of different stories. Just because you're close with your brother-in-law, your father, your mother, your sister, just because they've got the title of family and you've got blood, that doesn't mean they qualify as your support system. I'm sorry. Now, you might want to cry on their shoulder, but this is when you're an owner, this is freaking brutally challenging. And if your support system is your sister, but she's never run a business, she's never made a payroll, she's got no business being in your inner circle as it relates to business ownership support.
Sure.
No business, other than to cry on a shoulder, have someone listen to you, to the extent that that's valuable. Mm-hmm. But you need more than that. You need skilled people that have operated businesses, that have gone through the tough times, that have made a payroll, all the challenging things there are. Just because someone is your brother or your father or your mother, that does not a support system make. I'm probably in the minority there, but trust me when I tell you, I've lived this the hard way. That I've leaned on people that I had no business leaning on, that they've never made a payroll in their fucking life. And here I am with a lot of people on my payroll, and that's my support system. I should have been fucking shot for doing that. But no one ever told me. No one ever, you got to learn this the hard way.
You're very self-effacing about that kind of thing, too. I noticed that about you early on. Braggadocio and pride, that's just not part of your playbook. Okay, and when you make a mistake, you talk about it. In fact, we've talked about a lot of mistakes here on this podcast.
Well, why would we do a podcast if we weren't going to be real with it?
Yeah, it's I know, warts and all.
Yeah,
and the warts and all approach is...
The warts are where you're going to learn from. So, look, I'm telling people, there's probably... Look, I don't know if I'm representative. The mistakes I made as it relates to that topic, support system. All right, wife obviously counts, our husband, right?
Sure.
Then the question is, what's the support beyond that? And most people would say, all right, well, my brother, I trust my cousin, whatever it is. Great. Have they ever made a payroll? Have they ever run a business? Are you just looking for multiple shoulders to cry on? Look, as Kim would say, pull your fucking big boy pants up and get to the table with some solutions. Start processing the issues. You can't have a support system that's your mother or your father if they've never run a business. I'm sorry. They don't count. Who's it going to be then? So you got to go build a network of people that you trust that actually have the skill. So it's one thing to have a shoulder to cry on. That's only going to get you so far. The freaking problem is still there. How are you going to deal with the problem? So, okay, getting it off your chest is valuable. And then you got to figure out how to deal with the problem.
Yeah.
If they don't got the experience, they don't count. So I think I learned the hard way that my network was highly exposed of people that have never made a payroll, and I paid the price for it in the short term. I had to figure out, all right, I got to shut that part of my world out. It's going to be detrimental to me dealing with this. So learn the hard way. So if people can start to think about, all right, I need some skills around me that are going to help me with this problem at hand, and all right, my sister-in-law doesn't have that skill set, so who's it going to be? And then they're going to start building that over time.
Well, it's I'd say you summed that up pretty well. And yes, that is somewhat controversial. Okay, but the crux of the matter is, well, and I love the term. Have they ever had to meet a payroll?
That's gonna weed out 92% of the population.
And you don't.
8% of the world owns a business.
Yeah.
So let's just assume 92% of the people, as a business owner, are not going to be your support network.
Right.
Now, maybe I'm being a little dramatic with that maybe they can't relate. But generally, you should be thinking, if 92% of the world hasn't made a payroll, have they ever had that responsibility? Because being a business owner comes down to your employees. You've got your number one is not your investors, it's your employees. Without a team, you're nothing. And if you can't make that payroll and have the skills that it takes, and there's like 30 of them to make a payroll, right? You got to have those skills. If your support network outside of the business has never done that, you got to think long and hard that you've got to build a support network that does have that experience.
It's true. You can't.
It hurts the family. Let's say my family was my support system, and they're listening to this. That might hurt their feelings. Well, pull your big boy pants up. You either are in this for politics and for making everyone happy, or you're in this for the responsibility, which is what it is, of being a business owner.
Well, I love the big boy pants.
Big boy pants on.
Kim's, she's good with that. I love that stuff. Well,
you're not going to dwell on problems when someone's telling you to put your big boy pants on.
No, you're not.
It's kind of the brutal advice you got to. All right, suck it up, and let's get to work here.
Let's get to work here. Exactly. All right. Well, 5 years has gone by. What's the next 5 years going to look like? What are you thinking about in regards to the next 5 years coming up? What's on your mind? What are you thinking about? What is it that you're planning for? What are some of the things that you think are necessary in order for this business to continue to grow? And let's just take that 5 years out.
5 years out?
The next 5 years.
Well, I think we've established a good core, a team that's more robust than what it was when I came in, right?
You are so you are so kind.
The team's a little bit more robust.
Did you hear that?
Dom?
5.
The team's more robust. So
that it was 5 years ago when you started.
You had you and Brian. Now we got you and Brian are still here.
Christ, I love that. Robust. Are you shitting me?
We had you and Brian. Now we've got you, Brian, and we got Nick, and we got John, and we got Jonathan, and you got Jimmy. Dom's 3 or 4 years of experience.
Got Juan Carlos.
We've got a team.
Oh, yeah.
The question is that core going to be able to grow as a unit, and can we add on to that or not? But if we just keep that team intact and have them all individually grow,
sure, the
next 5 years are going to be better than this 5 years. So that's common sense. The hard work's been done of establishing that team.
Right.
Now, now, what does it take to keep that team together and to have them individually grow? We got to be more successful as a business.
That's always going to be the challenge.
So the next 5 years, we're going to take this core and we're going to make it better than it is today. Mm-hmm. That might mean adding on to it. It might not. We got to grow the top line. So we got to figure out how to become more relevant in the marketplace. We got to do that in a way that doesn't break the bank on advertising, but does it organically. I think we got to tell our story that Paverart is a unique company in the world. I think, the Seth Godin thing, if you went away today as your business, would anybody care? Mm-hmm. I think that answer 5 years from now has got to be stronger that, yeah, somebody will care. If Paverart went away, 5 years from now, we got to have more people say, yeah, that's going to be a problem if Paverart went away. So we got to build a company that matters, that people will care if we went away and people would miss it. So how do you do that? Well, you got to continue to make great product. We got to get closer to our customers. We got to have deeper connections. We got to have a sales and marketing process that is more defined than what it is today, which is you and I shooting from the hip, trying to do as best as we can. We got to get more defined, more process-oriented there without losing our entrepreneurial spirit that we come to work with every day to day.
Sure.
So I think sales and marketing plays a role. The storytelling aspect of what we do plays a role. Embracing the grit and the grind of what we do, the hard work, the specialized manufacturing, the made in the USA, I think all of that matters. All the storytelling around that. The story is not me as a business owner. The story is the people that do the work, right? So getting them to be part of the story. This little superhero bouncing up and down on the screen, are there going to be 7 of them that are going to be part of the story that we communicate that people care to follow, right?
Sure.
I think that's got to be part of it. I don't know how you do that, by the way, but, Dominic's got some talent as it relates to multimedia and some different things. There's other people out there in the world that can help us with that. Don't know how to quite get there, but I know that kind of, if we can tell our story in a way that matters, I hate to use the word like the Kardashians or a reality show, because that is not my intent, but they are intriguing. So I think a small business doing what we do is an intriguing, compelling story for a right group that wants to listen to it. Is that landscape architects? Is it small business owners? The hustle or bust audience, whatever the hell that is. The storytelling and the brand matters. That's got to be the next 5 years, that's got to play out bigger than what it has over the past 20.
How about products? We have 2 very well-defined products. Now, I'm not talking markets. I'm talking products. Do we expand into other products? Do we expand into into other areas that might be related to our cutting equipment, but maybe a different media instead of concrete pavers?
Yeah, I think,
nameplate
could it be,
pavers?
our machine, you've said this a million times, our machines don't care what we cut.
Right.
So we can cut anything.
Right.
Can we combine design with different medium? I think that answer is yes. We should be open to it. We haven't spent more than 1% of our energy on that. Does that mean we should spend 25% of our energy in the next 5 years? I'm not convinced that's a yes, but maybe. I think we got to be open-minded to everything.
What's interesting, I think, is that 1% that we have spent
It's been impactful.
Yeah, it's been very successful. And, it's one of those situations where, okay, the core of the business is the other 99%. We got to make sure that that's working successfully and flawlessly every day, as close to flawlessly as possible. But that 1%, and you know what I'm referring to, this porcelain thing. I mean, I'm so intrigued by that. And our first foray into that was hugely riskful.
Yeah, one of the things I came into
and
it
turned out to be very successful.
Yeah, so I think that answer's got to be yes. We got to be open-minded to it. Can I tell you, I feel as strongly as that as I do about branding and storytelling? No, the answer is no. But okay. I am highly open to it. Now, one thing I am massively intent on, the expression I use, look, they came into the business, look, I said, they being a pejorative for a lot of people, employees, suppliers, customers, they got to respect Paverart and our place in the world and doing business with Paverart.
You've always said that. You've always said that.
Let's just say 30% of the world says that's a yes today. 5 years from now, that better be 60%. It better be significantly more. There better be more suppliers wanting to knock on our door and do business with Paverart than there are today. There better be more employees that want to come and do business with Paverart and want to be part of our journey than they are today. So they got to respect Paverart. When they come to work, they better bust it, right? That's part of our core values. This hustle, grit, grind, hustle, repeat. They got to buy into that. If they don't buy into it, we don't need them, right? So if the supplier doesn't feel value in being part of Paverart, we don't really need them, but we need other ones that will. So who are those people? We don't need to do business with everybody, right? This is a big freaking country. 300 and some odd million people. A lot of them have money. We'll be okay. There's enough people that want what we do. The question is, what's the best way to get there? But that mantra of they got to respect Paverart, that's got to be saying yes double over the next 5 years than what it is today. And I think this past 5 years is probably triple what it was. Don't you think? I think employees come here.
100% agree.
I think the employees that are here now value being here. I couldn't say that 5 years ago. They took their jobs for granted. So the people that take their jobs for granted, they're not going to be here. The suppliers that take us for granted, we're going to work like hell to get them out. We are. And we got to continue to find new ones and or go deeper with the existing ones that have been here for 20 years. We got to get deeper with our suppliers. And we got a lot of good ones. But suppliers, employees, customers, that acid test, they're going to respect Paverart. And we're going to be a great partner. We're going to be one of the best partners they can have, but it's got to go both ways.
Well, that summed that up pretty well. Now, the reason I say that And for those folks who are listening to this podcast, I got to tell them. I said, I got to tell them, you know, I surprised you with this morning as you were getting out of your car. We're doing a podcast. Don't worry about what are we going to. Don't worry about it. We'll talk about that when we get into the podcast room. No prep. This was all strictly off the cuff, extemporaneous, which I think we do pretty well. But that's what this was all about, and I'd say you knocked it out of the park. You gave just some terrific responses to the short number of questions that I put together, and thank you for doing that today. And happy anniversary, to you and to Kim and to Dom, because you're part of this too. But 5 years today, that's in the history of Paverart. This is a big deal. This is a really, really, really big deal. So thank you. Thank you for doing this today. Thank you for buying the business and all the good things that you've done for the business.
Look, thank you. This obviously wasn't expected, this little podcast. And look, thank you. One of the small benefits of buying a business is if it works, you get a lifelong friend. I consider you a lifelong friend. So
right back at you, buddy.
That's an intangible that comes with when it works and you build a good team and you have success. You have lifelong friends that go along with it. And everywhere I've ever worked, I've had lifelong friends. So you're part of that crew.
Well, thank you. And that, like I said, that goes double for me. And I promise I won't be a jerk at the Billy Joel concert or the Bruce Springsteen concert. That's going to be a lot of fun. Think of that as we just kind of
little celebratory
thing, exactly. So, folks, I hope you enjoyed this today. The Mark basically coming clean with the last 5 years and his involvement here with Paverart and buying the business. I thought it was fantastic. Thanks again. Happy anniversary. Dom, take us away, buddy.